So we've been hearing a lot about heat pumps at the moment, particularly following the heat and building strategy, which was published earlier this year. The strategy itself placed a particular emphasis on the technology as part of plans to deliver low carbon heat. Can you tell us a bit more about how heat pumps can work with heat networks to deliver low carbon heating?
Of course. So, yes, the heat and building strategy shone a pretty bright light on the role of heat networks in meeting the UK's carbon targets, while emphasising the need for a whole range of technologies, including heat pumps. I suppose the first thing to say is that connecting buildings via a series of pipes to distribute low carbon heat isn't a new concept, nor, of course, is the use of heat pumps themselves to provide the heat source. What we're really starting to see here in the UK is an interest in the convergence of the two technologies in delivering substantial carbon emission reduction potential.
And how about through HNIP? Have you seen many applications from schemes using heat pumps as their main heat source?
We've seen a real increase in planned heat pump usage throughout the life of the HNIP. Around a third, in fact, of all successful schemes now using heat pumps in some guise or another as the primary heating technology. Successful HNIP applications, including heat networks combining ground source heat pumps and air source heat pumps. And we're also working with two mine water heat pump projects. All these schemes offer substantial carbon emission reduction potential.
So would you say this has been consistent throughout the HNIP funding rounds, or that these types of schemes have changed throughout the program itself?
We've definitely seen some changes, and throughout the life of the HNIP, we've seen a lessening role for gas CHP and an impressive, evident desire to decarbonise at pace. It's true that the HNIP was never intended to be an innovation programme and has never funded novel technologies, but many of our investees' projects are right at the cutting edge of heat network systems development, and that's a trend that seems likely to continue into our final rounds.
And so what does this mean for the future of UK heat networks market?
Well, I think there's a really exciting future ahead of us for the UK market. The increased interest paints a positive picture around the market and sets the tone for the government's Green Heat Network Fund, billed as the successor to the HNIP. It's a funding programme that intends to support new and existing heat networks, and it's going to have a laser-like focus on the shift to low and net zero carbon technologies. Our experience in delivering the HNIP funding to date tells us that this shift is pleasingly already taking place now and at real pace.
Fantastic. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the projects that are utilising heat pumps within their heat networks?
Sure. So, as we said earlier, there's lots of projects now that are using heat pump technology. We can't talk about all of them, but there are a few that are really great to discuss. I mentioned mine water heat pumps earlier, so let's start there. There's some really interesting schemes up in the northeast where Durham County Council and Gateshead Council are both using mine water source heat pumps to provide geothermal heat to exploit energy already under our feet in those abandoned mine works. In fact, really pleasingly, we saw an ODU contract notice just yesterday suggesting that Northumberland County Council intend to follow their lead in pretty short order too, and are planning to conduct feasibility studies in 5 of their towns. A little further south, we've supported the expansion of existing heat networks in Bristol that will make use of air and water source heat pumps too, and as well as geothermal energy.
And you recently announced some funding awards to more heat pump schemes. And can you share some insight into these projects?
Of course. So we awarded over £1 million of funding to the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea. That was for the development of the Nottingdale Heat Network that will provide heat to over 800 existing homes in North Kensington, as well as several public buildings and business units. Around 80% of these homes are currently heated by two existing heat networks, which are 40 plus years old, and the rest use individual combi boilers and gas CHP. The new network will use air source heat pump technology and be zero carbon by 2030, saving around 790 tonnes of carbon a year and supporting the borough's plans to become zero carbon by 2040. We awarded just over £5 million to Worthing Borough Council for a scheme that will replace gas boilers in 27 buildings with a heat network using a centralised 3 megawatt heat pump to take heat from the sewers underneath the town and ultimately save almost 2,500 tonnes of carbon annually. The Peel Group which was one of HNIP's early success stories, was also award-funded funding for a second time. This time, £6.2 million of HNIP funding will enable the transition to a heat pump rather than gas CHP and help to roll out the network on a much larger scale. A central cluster of large existing buildings will also connect to a heat network. When complete, Mersey Heat will provide low-carbon heat and hot water to up to 9,000 homes and 4 million square feet of commercial space at Peel's £5 billion Liverpool Waters development and several nearby municipal buildings. Lastly, we've also announced yet more funding to Bristol City Council, this time to support the development of the Temple Heat Network, which will supply low-carbon heat to residential student housing, university buildings and other education facilities. A combination of heat pump technologies to be used, including a ground source heat pump using a local sandstone aquifer, a water source heat pump using Bristol's floating harbour, and extracting waste heat from the university buildings as well.